I will tell you from a technical perspective, though, sometimes our clients, especially those that chose to go the non-SAP route, given the explosion of tools out there in the past 5 to 10 years, I think they took for granted a lot of the pre-built content that SAP put in, whether it's currency conversions, whether it's unit conversions, when you're looking at your different materials and looking like in the consumer package industry, right? No one buys an individual candy bar. If you're a candy manufacturer, you buy packages or you buy whole units that you stand up in a retail store.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. This is Hamilton Chock, and I serve as PwC's US Managing Director responsible for our alliance here. And today we're going to be continuing our vodcast series entitled Digital Future Unlocked with PwC and SAP, where we bring some of the most solutions experts to discuss a wide array of SAP topics. As we get into the session here, I'm going to be introducing our special guest, Frank Rinaldi, who leads our data and analytics practice. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about data and analytics today, that world. Frank, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions during this podcast series, and I'd like to just kind of get into it. So again, thanks again for joining, Frank. Foremost, for everybody who's listening or viewing today's session, let's talk about your role and responsibility here at the BBC.
Sure. Thank you, Hamilton. So, I have been in the data analytics space now, mostly centered on ERP focused transformations for 23 years. I've been at the firm for 15. I've worked for SAP. I've worked for clients. So typically I love to bring different viewpoints as we work on different engagements. And I've worked for very small companies doing transformation projects in the hundreds of millions. I've worked for very large companies in the hundreds of billions in revenue. So love to bring those viewpoints from a data analytics standpoint. As you know, Hamilton, this area continues to evolve every couple years, right? It feels
Yeah.
like if you take your eye off of it and come back to it, the entire space has changed in terms of the technology, in terms of how businesses are trying to gain a competitive advantage. So looking forward to talk to you about that today, especially in the mid-market, where I think companies are particularly challenged in terms of trying to stay working with standard SAP tools from data analytics perspective, but also trying to also be agile and trying to be continual innovators and leaders in their space so they can compete and grow.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the things that we want to talk about today, because you talked about competitive advantage, and you oftentimes hear that word agility and the role that it plays in giving organizations that competitive advantage. So let's talk about bringing it back home to analytics. How does analytics enable, in your mind, agility?
I think that it's funny. A lot of times when I do these transformation programs, we do a reporting strategy, and I think we're going to have the answer at the end of that strategy. The reality is, for most companies, when you talk to their executives, it's really their questions they're asking are changing quarter by quarter, right? Is my demand forecast correct? How is my demand for my products changing? What are the products that give me the best margin? I think that the key to a strong analytics solution is being able to rapidly change the question you're asking and get results quickly and accurately. So I think as we work with customers in the space and we work for transforming their organizations, we really look to figure out not just what do they answer, questions are typically asking 80% of the time, but for the 20% that are unknown, how do we build a solution that makes it quicker and faster to get results for questions we may not have anticipated?
And so when you think about getting answer to those questions, right? I know we promote a lot of different topics in the market, especially around analytics, but there's a specific offering that we have today, leading with insights. You want
Mhm.
to talk about at a high level what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Leading with insights is a data warehouse focused solution where we're giving you a reporting solution with pre-packaged extractors and content, both considering your old investment in legacy systems as well as your new investment in S4, and package that up so that you have the data and the models to ask not just those 80% of questions, but ideally so that you can quickly get to the other 20% of information. We have it there in the package solution. You can quickly pull it and form that up and get the answers to this question quickly.
One of the things that I always think about when I think of analytics, we always think about the role analytics plays, especially when you're looking at SAP BTP or the business
Mhm.
technology platform. So talk to me about some of the more detailed, maybe integrated planning analytics that are incorporated into the offering today.
Sure. Our leading with insights was all built on BTP, whether that's HANA or Datasphere underneath and SAC on top. It's an integrated solution all enabled by BTP. And again, if you're even if the great thing there is that when you go live and your S4 system is focused on processing transaction and making sure your companies run efficiently, that BTP platform is there so you can more easily customize it without worrying about impacting the S4 system. And also giving you tools that are integrating and implementing some of the latest and greatest. You talked about integrated planning, Hamilton. That's one of the great things about BTP is that you can grab data from all over the place, right? If you're creating an integrated plan between your finance and supply chain, some of your supply chain may not be fully on SAP. BTP is a place where you can pull that information together. And then as all of us are looking at the new tools out there, especially as SAP and other vendors are embedding AI into the tool sets, you can look to use some of the latest AI tools through SAC to come up with those integrated plans and also create forward-looking demand forecasts and adjust those as you want to play with different variables in that demand forecasting cycle. Again, that's something that AI is evolving in that space as the models evolve, but that's something that we're seeing our clients do more and more as they're trying to get the value of AI into those integrated plans with multiple data sets.
I'm smiling as you bring that up because Gen AI is a buzzword now that you hear everywhere, right?
Absolutely.
We can't engage in a conversation, any conversation without hearing Gen AI. So Frank, tell me about how can clients leverage Gen AI in your mind to make sense of their data and gain these valuable insights that you've been referring to?
Well, Hamilton, I wish I had all the answers, and hopefully I would have bought all these AI companies a year ago and been a billionaire now. But I would tell you that everyone is rapidly experimenting. And at PwC, I think we do a lot of our experiments by line of business to better understand what works for different parts of the business landscape. I know in data analytics, that's how we look at things. And if I think about for SAP customers, very often the line of business we most focus on is the CFO, right? You mentioned integrated planning. We look a lot at where are the inefficiencies in the planning process in terms of where is there bad data quality and how do we better detect that? How do we look at easier ways to plan without having to go through the manual process of asking people what they think and then integrating that into an improved plan going forward? I think that those areas of actually looking at data quality and actually generating the plan automatically are the two places that we are looking to use Gen AI more and more. Data quality is a place where, as you look at how these large language models are being used to learn, or even, again, people are lumping now machine learning into AI, but I see as another piece of it. They're looking at using those different types of models to better look at the data quality coming in, more proactively identifying where there's errors, and then either direct noting those errors and making sure that executives who are looking at the results of data sets with those errors understand them, or proactively trying to fix it based on previous information and fixes that have come into the system. And that takes model training and better prompting, but we're working on that. On the other side, in terms of generating that plan, as I mentioned before, a lot of the tools SAP is using is actually automatically to generate the demand curve, whether that's or that planning curve. And then you can actually prompt the Gen AI Joule, in this case, I think SAP calls it, to change what it comes up with based on different variables, right? So I think those are something that, especially in this office of the CFO, are things that we're testing out and trying to prove out more as the models get more sophisticated and more accurate in their predictions.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, Frank, you talked about the tools that SAP is using. So we all know that SAP has a pretty robust suite of data analytics products. Talking about those solutions and how clients can really capture the value of those solutions in their own environments today
Yeah.
as they think about us for how they can really tap into those benefits even further.
Absolutely. But I think a common misperception, one of the things challenges clients have is when they do their S4 projects, they want to make their system as efficient as possible. And a lot of times they try to get everything out of S4. The reality of the world is, though, S4 is not going to have everything. Typically, you'll have a separate HR system, You'll have a separate corporate planning system from the FP&A department at a minimum. And then many times you may have multiple ERP solutions, not just that you might be trying to consolidate maybe small instances of SAP. And so you need one place to bring all that data together. I think that's where SAP's vision, they have their visualization layer, SAP Analytics Cloud, which has been out there for almost 10 years now, is becoming a very solid reporting platform as a success for business objects and as a competitor to other tools out there like Power BI or like Tableau. And then on the back end, you've got their DataSphere platform, which they have been, it's a cloud first platform, cloud first data warehouse. So it competes with the likes of like Snowflakes or even Databricks or some of the hyperscalers that are out there too. I think one of the best things about using SAP's platform is that it comes with pre-delivered connectors and pre-delivered content that you can start from that quite honestly, their competitors just don't have, or not to the depth of industry specificity that clients expect when they implement S4. So we're seeing a lot of small, mid-sized companies really go to buy that full SAP stack. Again, it's all enabled by BTP. It's part of the licensing agreement. It's easy to use. And for large enterprise clients, we still see finance still leaning towards using DataSphere and SAC as their source of truth for finance, but they may be using other solutions that like SAP partners with Databricks, for example, where they may have more voluminous enterprise data that they need to merge to that SAP data and do it in a separate place.
So thank you. But I think as we start to think about how we guide our clients, Frank, what would you say are maybe the top three considerations if a client is looking to embark on a data analytics strategy? What should
Yep.
they get about? Like when you talk to them, hey, these three things are maybe where you would start. What would that be in your mind?
But and it's a great question, Hamilton. And if I think back to our comments, what we're starting to earlier about agility, right? I think the end result clients should be building an agile platform. And to do that, one, I think you need to think about the sets of data that you're going to want to be analyzing to answer the questions. Yes, you've got your standard finance questions around your external financials. What was my net sales? What was my gross sales? What was my profitability? But you may be also asking very granular questions about who are my top customers? What does that look like across my different order cash systems, for example? So one, you want to make sure you're pulling the right data in the same place. Two, you want to make sure that you have a consistent platform with, I would say, tool sets that naturally work together and make it easy for your developers to quickly turn around solutions. And again, that's where we talked about DataSphere and SAC as being a really nice tool set that you can implement using BTP. And then lastly, I would really think about governance around how you're going to put these pieces together and make sure that you're giving a consistent source of truth back to the business. That can be a very light touch, but making sure that you have clear custodians who are looking over ensuring that the data and the relevant KPIs you're bringing out are correct and continue to be correct going forward, I think goes a long way to making sure that you're building trust. And when you ask for those agile answers, you actually trust what you're getting back versus thinking that it's something that's haphazard and that you don't really, it's not worth the time that you put into it.
Excellent. Excellent. Frank, ton of experience. We can certainly tell by your background and the way in which you've answered some of these questions. So thank you so much for being with us here today. If there's that one maybe aha moment that a client might have after implementing an SAP data and analytics solution, based on your experience, any feedback or any experience where you might be able to say this is what they really kind of gathered from that implementation?
I'll tell you, Hamilton, I think the business just wants the answers, right? I will tell you from a technical perspective, though, sometimes our clients, especially those that chose to go the non-SAP route, given the explosion of tools out there in the past 5 to 10 years, I think they took for granted a lot of the pre-built content that SAP put in, whether it's currency conversions, whether it's unit conversions, when you're looking at your different materials and looking like in the consumer package industry, right? No one buys an individual candy bar. If you're a candy manufacturer, you buy packages or you buy whole units that you stand up in a retail store. Again, a lot of these guys who build these solutions don't think about that. When SAP thinks about it, they think about and they look at that catalog and the deep industry expertise, and you get that out of the box. I think companies spend a lot of time trying to recreate that. And cool developer kits from companies that have a really good marketing budget, but really don't know these companies' industries. So again, I think that there's a lot of value that you get with SAP industry specific solutions. They do a great job building that into their DNA solutions. They don't always do a great job marketing it though. And I think that's definitely something that a lot of times companies, maybe realize after the fact that maybe if they gone full stack SAP, they would have been really able to accelerate time to value for those SAP generate insights a lot quicker than if they went with a completely custom solution.
Fantastic. All right, Frank. Well, hey, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. And for those of you who are viewing today, appreciate you jumping in and listening to us. If you'd like to learn a little bit more information, please reach out, give us a call, send us an email, or you can take a look at our website at pwc.com. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, folks.
Bye bye.